I'm delighted to be here because I wanted to introduce myself, as Justin said, as Minister for Science, Research and Innovation, as well as universities. So I'm the Minister responsible for taking forwards the grand challenges in the industrial strategy, in particular future mobility, clean growth grand challenges. And so I look forward to working with many of you in this room going forwards. But I'd like to start today with a story about the American designer Norman Bel Geddes. In his 1940 book, Magic Motorways, Bel Geddes listed many automotive breakthroughs made in the previous 30 years. Electric headlights, automatic wipers, shatterproof windscreens, four-wheel brakes, punch-proof tyres, and so many more. Yet, he argued that in 30 years from 1940, there was one part of the car which had not improved, arguably the most important part, and that was the driver. In Bel Geddes' own words, his eyesight is no better, he reacts no faster, he doesn't think any better, and he is just as absent-minded. Yet Bel Geddes believed that there was a solution. Looking forward 20 years, he predicted, and I quote, that the cars of 1960 and the highways on which they drive will have in them devices that will correct the faults of human beings as drivers. They will prevent the driver from committing errors, and they will prevent him from turning out into traffic except when he should. They will make it possible for him to proceed at full speed through the dense fog. Of course, self-driving cars were not, as we know, widespread by the 1960s. And even when I was born, sadly showing my age, in the 1980s, there was no sign of them at all. But my point today is that the world of science fiction, which Bel Geddes predicted 80 years ago, is much more closer than we think. The phone in your pocket offers an interesting analogy. It wasn't that long ago we were all happily, well, some people were happily playing Snake, or maybe Angry Birds in the case of the former Prime Minister, on our Nokia 3310s. Yet we have in our pockets a device which, when we can send a video message, anyone else on the planet can receive at a moment's notice. But because this has come about gradually through the accumulation of many small changes, an evolution rather than revolution, we often take the end product for granted. And I think that there's a similar situation with today's cars. Every new car sold off a UK forecourt is more connected than the last, with everything from satellite navigation to cruise control to automatic braking, keyless access and in-car Wi-Fi. Smart motorways are now keeping traffic flowing, while sensors in parking bays are helping people find spaces faster. And new technologies, which can limit a driver's speed and change traffic lights when ambulance approaches, are just around the corner. Yet, the advent of self-driving cars will not be simply an aggregation of what we already have. As the SMMT's Connected report shows this morning, it will have a far-reaching implication for how we live our lives. Now, imagine if I told you that a pharmaceutical company had developed a new drug which could save the lives of well over 1 million people a year. Well, self-driving vehicles have the potential to do exactly that. By eliminating road deaths caused by human error, they could save the vast majority of the 1.25 million people killed on the world's roads every single year. And self-driving vehicles will also mark a shift from driving as a skill to mobility as a right, opening up travel to the disabled, the elderly, or those simply too young to drive. And while those who currently drive to work could use their commute however they want, from working to sleeping to catching up on their favourite Brexit debates, perhaps, if you're so minded, hopefully not. How can we seize these benefits? Well, while self-driving vehicles have pride of place in our industrial strategy through the Future of Mobility Grand Challenge, government cannot create this future alone. We'll need everyone in this room, automotive manufacturers, suppliers, insurers, AI companies, cybersecurity experts, telecoms firms, lawyers and local councils to come together to make this a reality. Personally, I'm optimistic because I've seen the rate of progress firsthand. You might have seen the black Ford Mondeo outside the front entrance, a self-driving car belonging to Oxbotica, whose chief executive, Graham Smith, is here today. Now, what Oxbotica are doing really is outstanding. They've created a camera-based system which can remember the places it's been before, wherever, whenever, whatever the weather. Running a trial with Ocado in London, which delivered groceries autonomously for 2 weeks with 0 interventions from a human being. And as we look to build on achievements like these, collaboration will be crucial. The National Automotive Innovation Centre at the University of Warwick is a great example of this. The centre is proof positive that big firms are not the enemies of innovation. Without Jaguar Land Rover, the project simply would not have happened. Walk into the building today and you'll see big firms working with small ones to help them prosper. University researchers working with startups to bring their ideas to life. Engineers teaching apprenticeships new skills. And different sectors working together on a new model of mobility. Indeed, so many big manufacturers are recognizing that no company or no country can create this technology alone. Ford and Volkswagen, both in the room today, are teaming up to work on self-driving vehicle research. And while Daimler and BMW are putting €1 billion into schemes like their car sharing and ride-hailing business Share Now, in the UK, we can't meet this unprecedented global cooperation with unprecedented global isolation. And of course, we could build a self-driving vehicle that would be strictly British in every sense, from the ideas, skills, parts which created it, to the investment that funded it. But we know from experience that when we combine the best from around the world with our own strengths, we can achieve even more. And I know that you've already heard today from Aston Martin, from Toyota Connected Europe this morning. A Spaniard working for a Japanese company which last year launched their European tech startup here in London to have access to some of the best data scientists and software developers anywhere in the world. Later this year, through our industrial strategy, we will support other Japanese firms here today like Nissan and Hariba Mira as they work with our universities, Highways England and Connected Places Catapult to attempt the most complex, autonomously controlled car journey ever undertaken in the UK. And while investment and innovation have continued, I know that uncertainties around Brexit have caused particular and severe concerns for the automotive centre. Now, Parliament and the Prime Minister, as of yesterday, have now both made clear that we cannot leave the EU without a deal. We've got this short period now of time to seek a consensus about what deal would be acceptable to Parliament and the EU. But I believe that whatever form it eventually takes, this deal must be one that protects the supply chains, preferential trading relationships, and common regulatory standards that you rely upon today, and which will make possible the vehicles of the future. Indeed, over the last 5 years, government and industry have committed more than £400 million in world-leading R&D and testbed infrastructure. But we also need to be agile, making sure that regulation moves in lockstep with innovation. In July last year, Parliament passed an act setting out a new framework for motor insurance for self-driving vehicles, a world first. And innovation in this area is not slowing down. Oxbotica, for example, are writing insurance into their software, testing self-driving vehicles which sends data to their digital insurance policy, which then tells the vehicle in real time what to do in a given situation. An insurance policy not as a piece of paper that you put in a drawer, but something that can control your vehicle second by second, meter by meter. And with technology changing faster than ever, our regulators' Pioneer Fund will help Britain's regulators keep up across a number of areas, supporting projects including an innovation lab to tackle regulatory challenges facing autonomous ships and smart shipping, and a regulatory sandbox to help develop regulatory policies for innovations like flying taxis and automated systems. Ladies and gentlemen, If you ask people on the street outside, most won't have seen a self-driving car, let alone travel in one. But make no mistake, that world that Belgedis described is indeed taking shape. And we all have the elements required to bring this to fruition. Researchers with creativity and ideas, investors with capital and an eye for good deal, startups ready to try new things, big players that are able to produce at scale, and indeed a government ready and willing to use its powers to regulate, to convene, or to invest. We are already doing much more than people imagine together, and we can go further than even we imagine. Thank you for inviting me here today.